off, right? I found that to be like the most best way to encapsulate like black capitalism. I think my phone's going off, excuse me. So it's like black capitalism basically is like, what they sold black people as the American dream, right? You get a car, you go to college, you get this house with the driveway and the vibes, and then everything's okay, right? Meanwhile, on your day off, you spend the majority of your time and your money spending it right back with the people who you just earned it from, right? Buying a bunch of luxury stuff and designer stuff, and like in the same system that oppresses you, right? I mean, you could buy a whole bunch of this stuff and then people still call you the N-word, still deny you service. And somewhere in this, black people be feeling empowered to just have a little bit of money, a little bit of status. It's basically just black capitalism, classism, and, pushing forward the agenda of white supremacy. Also, my point here today, right, to not hold y'all up, is that there's a myth of black elitism, right? It's not real. You're not really elite. You're really just low-key oppressing your own people, and you're trapped by black capitalism, to be honest, right? And I'm going to show y'all the actual way to get free, especially if you're around some of these black capitalist people, or if you're a black capitalist yourself, and letting you know, like, your degree is not a shield, right? Your credentials don't shield you from racism. This is something that I talk about often, but I'm learning, like, I don't want to drive my girlfriend crazy or my friends. So I said, well, let me come on YouTube and let me like come find my tribe, right? And a lot of the people who I do talk to in person, let's take a step back. A lot of the people that I do talk to in person, shouts out to FD Signifier, right? I've been watching a lot of his stuff over the last year. And he has this video called Woke Washing. You can check that out. It's a really quick video, but it talks about the movie that just came out. It's like this thing where basically they just sexualize black women and venerate white men's fetishisms. It's a really good video. I was blown away after he broke it all down. But yeah, this is the thing, right? A lot of black women have a lot of spending power now. A lot of black men have spending power now, and they want to see themselves in the media in a way that portrays them. And oftentimes it's just like their insecurities being propped up, right? A lot of people call this wokeism, woke washing, you know what I mean? And it's the opposite of being a hotep. So this is like an interesting dynamic because you got your woke black people who want to be integrated into society, but they want to be able to be given the rights and the privileges that were removed from them when they were marginalized. So that's a lot of what being woke is about. It's like, okay, we were marginalized for this, whether it was being gay, being women, being black, being immigrants, being disabled, right? And being woke is all about getting those things back, which totally makes sense, right? It's like, you don't want to just leave your inalienable human rights on the table. Inalienable means you're supposed to have them, if you don't know what that means. So it's like, it totally makes sense, the actions and the efforts of being woke, for sure. But then there's the part of like, most woke people aren't truly politicized. They're not truly revolutionary, right? They want to negotiate with capitalism. They want to negotiate with white supremacy. They want to negotiate with their oppressor to get privileges and to get rights and to be able to integrate well into society without any harm. Now, we're not going to get into my personal politics, but we can see clearly throughout history that that has never been accomplished completely and entirely. So normally the thing to say is, well, we got to keep fighting. We got to keep pushing. And a lot of the media today supports that idea that you're getting small wins, whether it's being able to take, your divorce money from a white man in an interracial movie, or being able to raise yourself to the highest, work class and be the director of a department, at a business, and you come from Latin America, or, seeing a gay woman wield a firearm and, valiantly like push back her oppressors in her neighborhood, a part of the homeowners association, right? They create these dynamic characters that essentially like give people this idea that they've revolted or they've risen up in society, when really all you did was buy a ticket to a movie, right? Look like the chat is popping. Shouts out to everybody in here. Make sure you share and like this, because this is something that I'm doing not only as an outlet, but so that I can inform. I be online realizing like a lot of people don't know anything about being black. especially from a black male's perspective, right? There's not a lot of black men who come up here and articulate things. They have notes, they have experience, and can actually bridge the gap for different groups of people to understand our experience, right? I mentioned the word hotep as like as a polar opposite to wokeism, right? Being a hotep is being a washed out fake revolutionary, right? You have all the talking points, you have all of the attire and things of that nature, but you've been unpoliticized as well, right? You're not revolutionary anymore. Shouts out to the blocketh, you know what I mean? I see people in the chat popping up, so give thanks and praise to everybody here. So I just found that to be interesting that all of the most intellectual black people in society right now have been pretty much disarmed, right, with capitalism. Like they don't really make any large impact as long as their like identity politics or their money, you know what I mean, their bills are paid. Like they're very much diluted, right? So I'm gonna move on because there's something that the world loves the most that both of these sides complete very well is the safe Negro. There's the safe Negro. I used to listen to somebody named, well, not used to, I listen to him all the time, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, right? And he talks about the 3 types of black people that white supremacy love, right? If y'all can tell me what those 3 types of black people white supremacy love, put them in the comments. Because I'm going to share them with you, but I don't want to spend too much time here. So let me know if you've ever witnessed this, right? You have the bully coon, the bully the bully right? I'm not supposed to say that word. I can't say that word on the internet. I forgot. You know what I mean? They will definitely flag us. So the bully, we'll just call it the bully. And then the bully and then you have what's called the house, right? Or the, you know, the effeminate one, right? He said it right there, right? And then we have the Jezebel, right? The sapphire Jezebel, right? So there's like, so there's those 3 archetypes that white people love about, you know, black people. They're like, if you can fit into the narrative of oppressing your own people, being effeminate and non-revolutionary and compliant, or very over-sexual, right? These are ways that you can easily, you know, be politicized and put into the media of white people, mass media, you know, like being famous and getting a Grammy and things of that nature, right? You have to be able to perform what white people believe blackness is. And that's essentially what a safe black person was. I know growing up for myself, my parents was in the military, so they initially tried to put me down the safe Negro path, right? Work 3 times as hard as white people, don't buck back to authority, you know what I'm saying? Stay away from ghetto black people, live in a different neighborhood and stuff like that. So it's like, there's this whole perpetuation in our community that like black people even foster that you shouldn't want to be black or be around black people, right? Like one of the people in our chat just now mentioned OJ, right? Exactly. That's why they loved OJ. So I want to talk more about this stuff on this channel because it's super important about the music industry. That's something that I'm very, very tapped into, and I see how this has poured into the music industry in modern era. So like people literally just rap for money now, not for art, not for revolution, not for organizing, not for messaging, but they're like, oh, this is an easy way to get some money. So let's talk about the dirty industries, right? Since I'm talking about music and stuff like that, we're going to talk about what we would like to name from now on the dirty industries in the game, right? So this is you know, this is going to be a little bit harsh. So if you're not ready, you know what I mean, pull your britches up, right? So let's talk about how the black elite get their money from 3 industries that are like completely oppressive, but then they'll tell you that you need to get money and pull your bootstraps up and like do better and be financially literate and, you know, all of that crap, you know what I'm saying? Like they don't deliberately and both-handedly, not single-handedly, but both-handedly aggregate a lot of the space where, you know, black people are oppressed every day. So they'll oppress you and then tell you get your stuff together, right? And in a lot of the ways in these areas that they work in. So the prison industrial complex, right? Black DAs, cops, correctional officers, right? The whole we need to police our own communities rhetoric, right? It does not matter if you could hire so many black cops in a black city, but they still have to abide by what the policies are, right? They cannot move outside of that. Same thing with district attorneys, you know what I'm saying, and correctional officers. I mean, the fact that these were the actual slave catchers and oppressors day to day on the plantation is crazy. I'm gonna add a question and answer sticker here. Let me see. They talking about Nah, I'm not using this question screen. I thought it was a good idea. It's gonna distract us. That thing talking about peanut butter. Like, and this is what I'm saying. And people's brains have been melted. So like the prison industrial complex, right, is like literally birthed out of slavery. So the fact that they somehow were able, and this is what woke washing does, right? You put a couple black people in some commercials, you interview a couple black cops and district attorneys, and voila, right? You have poor, disenfranchised black people who are like totally demoralized and depleted from being poor. You give them a little carrot stick and say, hey, you could get out of poverty if you literally oppress people in poverty now. That's like literally the simple math behind it, right? So we'll move on, right? The banks, the financial industry, right? This whole like, we're gonna get you on the diversity board. You ever notice in corporations there's always a black section, right? They have like a section for black people to work in. They call you the culture leader, or they create a department and stuff like that, right? You know, somebody in the chat is cooking, right? We cooking in the chat. Crime rate is higher in urban communities because of gang and crime culture, right? This is why the number is disproportionate, right? It's like they put black cops in black areas where it's super crazy. They put black mayors there. They put the whole infrastructure of black enforcement in an area that they've already torn to shreds, right? It's like the government in America will tear to shreds a community and be like, yeah, well, y'all, we'll hire y'all to police each other and police one another, and then make you feel like you've done something important. And it's like, no, that's like throwing a party in my house and then making me clean it after, and I didn't participate in the party. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't destroy my community before you gave it to me. All right, these urban cities were this way when we received them. But I don't want to go backwards on the topics. I just wanted to acknowledge the chat because people be cooking in the chat. So, like I said, these corporate finance spaces with their diversity boards, and this is where a lot of the people who I've actually engaged with a lot are, where they're like, you just need to be financially literate. And trust me, I have a stock portfolio and I'm extremely financially literate. And I understand how the financial monetary system works. I also am an advocate for, insurance and all of the financial tools America has, but not because they're America's tools, but because I want to protect myself from the oppression and the racism in this country. And the only way I can is by over-indexing in policies and in procedures that were given to us as rights as Americans, right? So I'm all about, as being a black person, having my rights as an American. This is why I was saying earlier with the woke thing, it makes total sense why they want to gain their rights, but at what cost? This is what this video, I think, is the main point. If you don't get nothing else from this video, the real question is, for you to be respected and be integrated into society, what's the real cost? If just you get in, but 10 black people got to go to jail, is that a good cost? Right? And this is what I've always said. It's like, we're going to invest healthily. We're going to think healthily. We're going to academia healthily, right? Once we get the bag, once we get the access, once we get the provisions, the goal is to be a revolutionary, right? You got to be revolutionary with these things, because otherwise, if you do them the way that they've been given to you, you will continue to foster oppression, especially in the financial sector, right? Companies like Palantir are literally going across the world oppressing people by the millions. And soon, once it becomes domestic terrorism, they're going to sell you another service so that you can save yourself from the very same thing that you invested in to oppress other people, right? This is how it goes. This is how it's always been, right? So I'll actually end it with this point, is like the medical system, right? The medical system, especially the for-profit health system, especially ignores the root cause of why there's health disparities in our community, right? And a lot of corporations lobby for, like the Health and the Food Administration to be able to just poison you with petroleum-based products, right? If you don't know about the Rockefellers and how the world became the world today, and how the medical association was created, you can go do some homework. You take this video that I have and go into Chat GPT or Gemini or something. Once again, right, I'm advocating for using the tools of our oppressor. But that's why I'm saying to enrich yourself, to educate yourself, right? And not to just go up there and ask them, basic questions about basic things that mean nothing, right? It's like I'm trying to get you to study. And that's how you can use these tools that are being created by oppressive people and oppressive states to liberate yourself, right? Being a critical thinker and thinking outside of the box, not using their suggested questions and using prompts off the internet that people give you so that you can inevitably end up in their product ecosystem. But I'm not here to talk about them. So, like the medical industry is one of the most, oppressive places. And, you would think at this point with as many like reports that they actually have on how disproportionately like Black women explicitly get treated and how much Black men don't go, you would think people would have given up on the hospital a long time ago. I know I have. Obviously, unless I have a bullet wound or something that's excessively, a big crazy injury, then of course, put me on a stretcher and save me. But the day-to-day stuff that people do and the day-to-day diseases people have are generally things that they've done to themselves from a lack of education around health. And you don't see anybody teaching you about health when you're in school. I think when you're in PE, you might get a health dissertation like once a quarter, but you never really learn about nutrition and anatomy and your blood and cellular, composition and stuff like that. I mean, at the most, they might teach you about like the animal kingdom in science class, but you don't really learn anything about yourself unless you're in a really good school. So I'm going to take this to the last part of the video, is like this whole investing your way out thing. Now, like I said before, I am an investor. I love the feeling of being in the stock market. It uses all of my risk management, all of my research and development, all the skills that I love the most in my life. I use them in the stock market. So when I say this, I'm not telling you to not invest. I am not a CPA. I'm not an advisor. This is not investment, advice. This is just for educational purposes. The whole disclosure of just like, I'm not telling you what to invest in, right? But the way Black people and these financial gurus, right, degrade Black people by associating their current state economically and politically because they're not financially literate or they don't own real estate, right? And they'll even tell you if you're in the streets, they'll like take that dirty money from the streets and put it in the stock market, right? Like they don't care how you get the money or what you do to get the money, right? Where you work, whether you got it from them institutions I mentioned, whether they don't care. All they know is you should invest the money so that you're not poor, because that poverty is an extension of your Blackness. That's how they feel. That's their point of view. And this is my opinion. I'm not in nobody's head, but a lot of people associate the degenerate behavior of Black people because they're Black and because they're poor, but not because they've been oppressed and marginalized, right? It seems like the whole stop being a victim rhetoric comes from people that don't want to acknowledge oppression, policy, and supremacy all woven into society, right? That's not the larger issue. No, it's the fact that you don't outpace this oppressive racist system by buying stocks and real estate. That's their point of view, right? And it can seem so narrow-minded, but it's also unempathetic and inconsiderate, right? Where a lot of times these people just want you to purchase from them, right? They're like, look, man, I can help you out because I'm not the same white people that boxed you out. I want to be the person that lets you in. So it's almost a direct acknowledgement of what white people do, because they're saying, I want to be the Black face. I want to be the representation that we can do this. And that would actually acknowledge that, that white people don't let you do it and that there's a great effort of us not doing it. So it's a very contradictory state. And I wanted to leave this to the end because if you're here, it's because you already understand a lot of what I'm saying, but you're probably looking for some points that can align us more closely, right? So I want to let you know, like, I have a community that I started where, yes, we're building wealth. Yes, we're working on mental health. Yes, we are also advocating for other people to learn and about themselves and gain knowledge of self, but we're not in the interest of being a capitalist and get into the bag And obviously, we're not in the effort of discounting or marginalizing or blocking out certain people, right? I'm a Pan-Africanist, and that means if everybody ain't free, I ain't free. So if you check the description, you know what I mean, you can come rock with me and build with me, and you can even have these discussions in real time with real people about this stuff. And we're all figuring out how to be sovereign. We're all figuring out how to bring our creativity to life, and we're all learning how to get out of the messy phase in our life. So that's just me inviting you to the community and stuff. And I'm going to talk about income versus wealth. I feel like this is like one of the, this is a teachable moment, right? That's why I wanted to do this, because I really wanted to teach. You know what I mean? I didn't want to just come up here and speak my opinion. I wanted to teach. So like, you're not building wealth, you're building comfort, right? When you have income, if you're not really sovereign, right? Can I go to the grocery store? Can I go to the clothing store? Can I celebrate the holidays, right? That's not wealth. That's just you using your income to insulate yourself and find comfort in a world that's burning, right? You live in an igloo in a fiery environment, and that's not wealth. That's not liberation. That's just you giving yourself comfort and ignoring the reality of what's going on with other people who look like you and who don't. And real wealth is being able to build something, right? Something that's sustainable. And if your wealth, your income and all of that relies on the stock market staying up, or your job having, like a position for you, you're not really wealthy. My mentor from the stock market told me, if you don't have at minimum 18 months, but like successfully 60 months of what you need to live, meaning like if you had to pay $2,000 worth of bills every month, $3,000, $4,000. I know people are going to come in here like, oh my gosh, only $2,000. If you had $2,000 times 12, that's 24, right? Times 6 is nearly like $150,000, right? That's the kind of money you need to be able to save and put to the side. And if that's relying upon the stock market or a job, then you're not really wealthy. You just have really high income, you know what I mean? And maybe a decent savings account. So let's talk about the class trader, right? We have people who are class traders. So I'm going to read this as a definition. So let me not do this, because I'm not the inventor of this name, right? There's always been class traders. There's a lot of like really scholarly people from the past who talk about class trading, right? Where it's like you come from the hood, you get a little money, and then now that you got a little money, you're looking down on the hood, right? There was this whole campaign for F the streets recently, where a lot of brothers was picking up cotton on their off day, right? It's just like, you didn't have to degrade what you came from because it traumatized you, right? You could have just stayed away from it. But because we all know that the streets is like one of the most provocative thing in hip hop, people wanted to gravitate to it. And this is ultimately always what capitalism does. That's what a trend is. A trend shows you where some people's morals don't meet the road, because some people will completely place their values to the side just to participate in a trend, because they know that there's some money attached to it. And that's the pause. That's the girth of capitalism, man. It takes up so much space when it just is like, man, that hurt. Pause. We're gonna move on from that one. I can see that didn't land well. So I don't want you to be poor. I want you to be a good person, right? We want you to get money. We want you to get resources. We don't want you to trade on your people, right? To be fair, right? Y'all remember when T'Challa gave away vibranium in Black Panther 2? Class trader, right? Class trading. T'Challa gave them vibranium. Tripping. And he was saying, oh, so I can save myself and my people. That be the problem. On some Umar stuff. That be the problem, right? Like, you cannot sell out your people to save your own people and call that viably moral, right? That is like the fear of the plantation deeply rooted in. And in any other community, you'd be called a coward, right? Chinese people and their kung fu and their lore about being Asian, you never give up your brother. You never do that. You know what I'm saying? Them gladiators, them white people, them Vikings, they will die on the stake for their men. But in Black communities, there's this thing where it's like, oh, I mean, you know, I had to get mines. I had to do me. And it's like, if I had to sell my people out, they needed to make sure they did their own thing. I'm like, man, if that ain't the most, I got picked up off the slave plantation, better job BS I've ever heard. Like, y'all got to get out of here with that, bro. That's so sad. That's so sad that you're so in fear of your life, so in fear of your oppressor, that you would just literally give up your own people. And this is why I say a lot of the things that we do is literally picking cotton on our day off. And when I heard Vic Mensa say that, when he said it on this podcast, The Jam, shouts out to them brothers as well too. It's like it literally electrified everybody because it resonated. It's like so many of our people be picking cotton on their day off, whether it's like the financial system, the criminal justice system, the health system, and the media with their money. I've laid out some very good examples here in the last 25 minutes. So as I wrap this up, right, I want to give y'all some sense of like solution here, right? We want to go to these jobs and we want to take that vibranium back to the hood, metaphorically, right? When we have found something of value, we want to take it directly back to the hood, right? We don't want to give it to the oppressor. We don't want to give it to social media and try to, you know, degrade our people, right? If you have something of importance and haven't brought it in a room with 5 to 10 strangers, don't come on social media with it yet. Everything that I'm saying here to y'all today, I've said to my friends, I've said to my family, I've said to the people around me. And like I said, I don't want to drive my girlfriend crazy. So that's why I'm here now, because I can understand how it can be depleting and how this conversation can be hard for people who have not been born into this, have never faced oppression, have never opened up a book about, you know, African history or American history. Like, if you don't know, then you can't care. And that's part of why the money and the income and the schooling and the indoctrination that you've been given by white people is why they gave it to you. So that you never open up your mind and truly understand what the truth is and how to act on it, right? Investing in land, you know, helping develop food systems and not relying on DoorDash and gaining 200 and freaking 1,000 pounds and having to wear a machine on your face because you can barely breathe because you have high blood pressure, right? It's like, dang, it's clearly not in your best interest, right? But you don't know what to do. You don't know how to eat your vegetables. You don't know what vitamins and minerals and etc. And that's by design. So when you build an ecosystem for your freedom, and it'll sustain your freedom. But if you build in a system based on oppression and try to practice freedom, you're constantly reinvesting in your freedom because oppression wants to gather you. It wants to capture you, right? So when we invest more in our culture, when we invest more in our political body and views and the policies that help repatriate the diaspora, this is how the culture becomes capital, literally, right? We all talk about culture capital and, you know, being able to degrade and denigrate ourselves in public platforms seems to be the monetary value of our culture, right? I'm going to be ratchet. I'm going to be disrespectful. I'm going to be dysfunctional. I'm going to be goofy and humorous. And then I'm going to get to some money, but that usually degrades and just dilutes our culture so much. And then it becomes cheaper and cheaper. And then you can't make any money off of it because then other groups of people reinvest in it and bring some quality and some class to it, not based on their race, but because they actually valued it, invested in it, and positioned it where other people can't participate in anymore. And that's the thing that a lot of these black capitalism and elitists do is they're like, well, I'm not kept out because I have money. But that doesn't mean that they're not trying to keep you out. So I'm going to end it on that note. Make the culture capital again. You know what I mean? Stop picking cotton on your day off and start building a way to liberate your people. This is Terrence Harris, and this is going to be my first episode of Still Growing. Bless up.